prominent SEO and digital marketing industry thought leader. He's the lead author of the book, The Art of SEO, and he's a speaker at many top industry conferences and founder and CEO of Stone Temple Consulting. Welcome, Eric Enge.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you here. Well, so Eric, you first had The Art of SEO published back in October 2009. So I was wondering to start off with, looking back over the last few years of SEO, is there anything maybe in that edition that you think is completely irrelevant now we're in 2016?
Well, I mean, there's certain obvious things because in 2009, we had an independent search engine called Yahoo. And so we did spend some time talking about that. And now we don't have an independent search engine called Yahoo. So that's one of the obvious things. Other things, there was a brief window of time when the search engines said that they were experimenting with social signals as a direct ranking factor. At the current point in time, Google says that's no longer the case. It was a very brief window, and then they pulled back from it. And there's a whole set of conversations we could have about that all by itself. And nowadays, it remains my opinion that it's not a direct ranking factor, by the way.
Okay. I was interested in your phraseology, Google says, but okay, you went on to expand on it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, honestly, the big issue, well, there's two big issues that people overlook when they get into that conversation. One is that, all the links from every social media site basically are no followed. And that already says something. But then there's a more strategic problem for Google, and that is that if Google made their search engine algorithm dependent on activity on Facebook, for example, and keeping in mind that Google and Facebook aren't friends, Facebook could cut that off at any time and blow up Google's algorithm. And so they can't have a major part of their ranking algorithm or any significant part in any way dependent on a third-party data source that could get cut off. So, but that's a whole nother set of conversations right there. But that's one of the other areas that now the way we talk about that in the art of SEO is completely different.
Do you think it's inevitable that social signals in some form will make its way back into the algorithm in the future?
Only if Google feels like they have complete control over it. I mean, there's lots of other things that Google could be using as ranking factors that we know that they aren't. And I've used the word "know" with some trepidation there, because what you know and don't know is always a tricky thing in the world of SEO. But click-through rate. So we have an article publishing tomorrow on the Stone Temple blog about how Google uses click-through rate and search quality. But there's a lot of people speculate, well, gosh, if my listing gets more clicks, I'll move up in the rankings. So here's the thought experiment that I'll urge listeners and viewers to consider is, so if you are a publisher of a website, you probably get those frequent emails pitching you on links, and you can buy link packages. Not as often as you used to, but you do still get them. And you do still get those people begging you to write a guest post on your site or offering you guest posting opportunities. And they say they'll get you in Huffington Post for, $35 or something like that. So you get those emails all the time. How many emails do you get offering you to jack up your click-through rate?
I don't
None.
believe I've seen one, no?
You get none. And the reason why you get none is their spammers don't even think it works. So, believe me, there's people who have tested this to the nth degree. There's certain industries we know that are really good at these things. The porn industry, whether you like it or not, they do massive experimentation around ways to jack up rankings, and people would have discovered it and proven it by now, right? And it hasn't happened. So,
do you think it can work for a short period of time, but it tends to then find the correct norm and take the listing back down to where it thinks it should be?
Well, yeah. I mean, Rand Fishkin has run tests at conferences where he's shown what looks to be a brief temporal disturbance in the force. In the rankings, through getting lots of people to click on something, and it's resulted in a short-term increase in the ranking of some content some of the time. Like, he's run the test maybe 10 times, and I think maybe 6 of those it appeared to move ranking up, and a few other times it didn't. But it didn't sustain itself. Yeah, maybe there is something at that level, and that probably would be coming out of a Google algorithm focused on what they call query deserves freshness, or news-oriented type content, or trending content. So, yeah.
Is that anything to do with RankBrain at all?
No, RankBrain is something completely different. RankBrain is, really focused on better understanding natural language, and the way I understand RankBrain, and I've had a chance to have quite a few conversations with Googlers about this, and let me stipulate clearly, that doesn't make me an expert on RankBrain, because I haven't worked on the algorithm or anything like that, but I have an understanding that they've communicated that's at least consistent with what I've observed in our tests. And that is, RankBrain really analyzed language across the entire web with a goal of better understanding the relationship between words and phrases in what we call high-dimensional vector space. That's a machine learning terminology. But the way they're applying it today is to better understand user queries. And let me give you an example of one, and that is one that was shared with Gary Enge on a live event I did with him on February 11th. But that query was, can you get 100% score on Super Mario without walkthrough? Okay, so the user is really asking, can I get a perfect score on this game without having to go through a complete walkthrough of the entire game? Now, it turns out that the traditional Google ranking, parsing algorithms, content parsing algorithms, strip certain words out of queries as a natural part of how they behave to make them easier to understand. And one of those words is the word without. So consider my query without the word without. Can you get 100% score on Super Mario walkthrough? Oh my God, the intent of the query was fundamentally changed. Because now what Google will do, if you drop the word without, is it will give you a walkthrough. It'll give the user a walkthrough instead of telling the user that it's possible to do it without a walkthrough, or to give them a way to do it without a walkthrough. So that's just an example query where the user's intent was not served by traditional parsing algorithms. And as a result of RankBrain, they handle much better. But the important thing to understand about RankBrain, and there have been articles written about this which are just completely incorrect. RankBrain didn't take over the entire Google ranking algorithm. It didn't replace the links algorithm. It didn't replace basic relevance functionality. It didn't replace location stuff. It didn't replace query deserves freshness type stuff. It just helps them understand the user search query better. And to the people out there who think that's a small thing, from a computing technology point of view, it is a massive accomplishment to do just that. Sorry, I rambled for a long time.
No, that wasn't a ramble at all. Is there anything that an SEO needs to do on the site in order to give themselves a better opportunity to start appearing for more conversational phrases?
So yeah, it's the classic question. Did this change SEO? Not really. Well, for some people it probably did. If you've been over focused on a keyword by keyword model, the need for that is lessened. And I say less, it didn't go away. You still do need to understand keywords for many reasons. I mean, and this sort of relates to, start thinking about 2020, right? And what's going to change between now and then. No matter what happens with search, you're always going to want to know what language your customers use to talk about your products. So keyword research is unchanged by anything. That won't change. And the way I like to help people think about this, if you were a marketer 30 years ago and there were no search engines, and someone had come to you and offered you the kind of data the keyword research tools offer, you would have thought you had died and gone to heaven, because you would have had all the language my potential customers use. So continuing to do keyword research is important because you do understand the language your customers use. You want those words on your pages. But if you were still rooted in a model where I've got to use this word X times, or you were hesitant to use logical synonyms of the main keyword, then you should just stop thinking that way, because Google's sophistication has moved beyond that. And you should make sure that you're really writing very natural, high quality copy on your pages.
So it's not necessary to change the copy to include conversational type search queries that people may start using if they use voice search more in the future?
I don't think so. Not at all at this point. That's sort of the antithesis of Google's intent and direction with this, right? Google wants to better understand what the user wants so that the publisher doesn't have to do that, right? So my question is, can you show me the latest reviews for Bertucci's on Route 9 in Framingham? If that's my query, right? Google basically wants to break that down to, pull data from their database of reviews for Bertucci's on Route 9 in Framingham. That's what they want to do. And there's no need for the associated web pages to have that whole phrase on there.
Okay.
The point is to get less specific about matching the language and less mechanical about it. There is a secondary thing that can happen, which is you could imagine that Google doing things with this to better assess page quality, because if you're over repetitive and over mechanical in your phraseology, then they could detect that as over optimization. So, by the way, my light here is terrible. Do you want me to throw on another light real quick?
No, that's okay. That's okay. We can see you fine, and quite a few people will be listening to the audio, so that's good. But so in relation to optimizing your site further for this kind of thing, is it simply a case of actually doing thorough analysis on the intent behind the user and trying to match that as an experience on your website, as opposed to optimizing it for certain keyword phrases?
Yes, I think you need to be spending a lot of time thinking about what the user's real intents are. So I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction, which is not necessarily rank brain, but relates to exactly what you just asked, David, because the way I like to talk about it, imagine you have a page about oil filters, right? Sure. And one way you could design that page is right at the top, you could have a button that says buy oil filters now. And then below that, a wonderful testimonial that says the best blank oil filters on the internet. And then below that, another button that says buy oil filters now or leave. That could be your entire web page. That's what I call a buy now or leave experience.
Okay.
So if somebody, they want oil filters, then I'm being a little extreme with my example. Imagine they could pick their oil filter and be off to the races. So you could argue that that might be a good experience for someone that all they want to do is buy an oil filter. The problem is that that's not the way the real world works. Most of the people coming to that page need to be able to do things like at least one of these things. Well, they all need oil, actually. If they don't have an oil filter wrench, they need an oil filter wrench. If they might want to find the manual for the car to make sure they're buying the right oil filter, because that's not something that's intuitive or obvious. They might want a how-to video on how to change one. And those are sort of the obvious things that need to work into a page. And what I'm triggering on is, you used the word a moment ago, what was the user's intent? Well, when they buy an oil filter, their intent is to change their oil filter, which involves a lot more than buying just the oil filter, the oil, the wrench, making sure you have the right one, making sure you know how to do it. And you can go a little further with this, which is, gosh, I am going to be working in my car. I might be doing some other things the same day, like changing the windshield wipers. So that speaks to the user's intent. So how well do you design your pages when people arrive on them to meet the complete user intent, which is rarely just the one individual thing?
To meet the user's future intentions, ideally, as well, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you're on a sneaker page, right, where you're selling a sneaker, well, probably two sneakers, because one sneaker isn't very useful. There are still related needs. You actually do want to see reviews of the sneaker. You want to see other options. I might have arrived at a particular pair of basketball sneakers, but I actually want to see the competitive options. And other things that are kind of obvious. I want a shopping cart. I want a privacy policy. Users have other needs on those pages other than just executing the purchase. So getting better at mapping the user's complete intent is, to me, a big deal when you look at where search is heading.
So what about the experience of the user on the Google SERP? Can you see the Google SERP changing significantly over the next few years? We've seen adverts removed. We've seen a greater focus on mobile, certainly, as well. Do you think it's likely that this may change significantly further over the next few years?
I do. One of the big trends we see is the rise of voice search is rising. I mean, it's increasing in a big way. Going back again to the keynote event I did with Gary Eish, he told us during that Google saw twice as many voice queries in 2015 than they saw in 2014. So a pretty big increase. And that on a phone, queries were 30 times more likely to be action-oriented. So the 30 times number seems really large to me, but put that aside for a moment. The point is, it's definitely increasing dramatically. People are getting more comfortable with doing it. And then the way they behave in that environment is different. So all of this suggests to me that they're going to continue to see a lot of evolution of how people choose to do search queries and what those intents are when they're on phone. And they're going to do more and more design around better meeting those intents. And so that will impact the SERP in some fashion. So when you see that they killed the right rail,
Hmm.
and they have more ads up top, at least some of the time, sometimes more ads down bottom now, it's because for Google, mobile is already first. They've already been there. They've been working on a mobile first mindset for some time. That's possibly one of the reasons why they killed the author photos thing. They reduced the number of images and videos they show in search because it slowed down mobile devices. They're investing a lot in a mobile first mentality. And as they gain more and more experience with that, they'll make more changes. And the other thing that's true is that the way users are using mobile devices is evolving. So even if Google catches up to the way they're using them today, the usage patterns are changing. Perfect example. People are getting more comfortable doing voice queries, in public, right? So that's an example of a usage change that's in the process of happening.
So do you think the desktop SERP experience will continue to follow mobile, and mobile will lead the way, and desktop will continue to mimic what happens in a mobile environment?
I do think that Google has made that decision, that they're not really looking to have two fundamentally different experiences, and they're going to have the desktop at least be very close to the mobile experience.
Okay, and just to conclude, really, what would you say an SEO needs to be focusing on in the future? Will it be possible, for instance, for an SEO to be working largely silo in an SEO department, or will it be essential to work effectively together with paid search and social at the same time?
To me, SEO is a marketing function.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I'm a technical guy. I was a software developer very early in my career, did that for a lot of years, and I managed a software development team. So, but the task is to bring in more customers, and you have to operate from that part of it. And I do think there will still be a strong technical component to SEO, and you can't lose sight of that. But to me, it's a marketing function, and it's a part of a larger team. You have to be holistic in your view. There's strong levels of interaction with social media, even though I just said early on that I didn't think social was a direct ranking factor. But as an indirect factor, it's a big deal. And I think you have to look at it that way. So those two departments have to have a lot of collaboration. And then there's interaction with PR. So I think there's a lot there. So this idea of being siloed is dead and dying, or dying and dead, or whatever the right order is for that phrase. And yeah, it's going to be a thing in the past. So it's going to be very important to have a broader marketing understanding and to be able to, maybe not in each individual, but for whatever department handles SEO, you have a mix of marketing knowledge and technical knowledge that's needed. And then to answer the $1 million question, it isn't going away. SEO will still be with us in 2020. There will be still a need to understand how to deliver traffic to, in response to people's search queries, and how to get yourself set up and prosper in that. Because it isn't going to be taken over by paid search, by the way, because no search engine that was 100% paid will happily exist.
Eric, the term thought leader is used for a reason, and it's certainly applicable with yourself. So thank you so much for joining me. Where can people continue finding out more about you on your website?
So, well, first of all, on Twitter, it's @StoneTemple is my handle. The website is stonetemple.com. Stonetemple.com/blog. We publish major marketing studies on a regular basis, roughly one a month that we are cranking out. And all these are based on volumes of research. So lots of information there available for people. And those are the main places to find me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me.
All right. Thanks for having me.